Hello, welcome to Boycie's Barrelback, deep in the bowels of my basement here in Portugal. Episode 18, I believe this is, and well, welcome. I hope you enjoy it. I'm getting some good feedback. I'm getting a lot of people signing up, subscribing to my channel, so there's a considerable bit of interest, I think. Well, hopefully the people that are going to be building or intend to build their barrelbacks or zips or whatever they're going to do, just to get a heads up what's going on and how I'm getting around it. Not necessarily the right thing, I know, but it's how I'm doing it, being that I don't really have any input directly from other people, and nobody seems to cover all these little individual problems that you get, and of course there is problems to solve each time you tackle this boat. So here I'm down the back of the transom of the boat, and I am doing the shear. And I knew that I'd have to put these extra pieces of wood in, and at the moment I'm up to 4 here. I haven't kind of got this one. There's quite a lot of bend going on here, not only bending in but also bending up here, or as it will be bending down to the back of the barrelback. So it's taken me all day to put this extra piece of wood in here, which is gradually being whittling down to here. Because I've got my 10mm here for my wood to sit under the frame there. Actually, it's a bit more there, isn't it? I've got 10mm just there. I've got my 10mm here, and I've faired the frame so that it is now roughly parallel. The same again here with my extra piece of wood that is just coming out in thickness, and I've faired that one off. And by putting this piece in, now I've got my 10mm there. And at the back, as you can see, because of the bend, I haven't been able to fix this just yet, but it will push in if I push it with my knee. There. And it looks to me awfully like I'm going to need another piece of wood there to bring that out, to give the wood something to sit on. And that's why I was down the back here looking at this, at the back here, to see what goes on, because you can see that this, remember, was 12 degrees, as all of this was here. So it bends in quite a bit, which has not been reflected on that, because there's quite a bit of bend, and there's nothing to hold the bend because of the frame up there. And if I file that down, then I'm not going to get my 12 degrees in there. So I'm thinking that I've got to add another little piece of mahogany here and fare that down to nothing by the next frame, so that when I come to put my plywood on here, it's got something to sit on that will give it that bend. And obviously the 3mm ply will be easily bent onto that, but I've got to keep that 12 degree camber on there. And as you can see under here, you've got quite a bit of extra space up here, because this is going to be the decking plank. That's going to be fared off down to not a lot by the time I get these here. Same again here. I'm going to have to cut them extra deep to put my plywood in, and then my decking plank, as I described before. So I was just sort of looking ahead at how this is going to fit with the decking plank and the side, the plywood on the side. I might have to just go and have a look at a few more photos online and see if I can see how anybody else has done it, because it's a nice smooth mahogany transition between the deck plank and the side plywood. So this wood obviously is getting in the way of that, but I know that quite a lot of this is going to be fared off once I've got the boat righted to correct upright, and then you're going to be able to work on this a lot more easily, because working for underneath is a bitch. But it's getting there slowly. Welcome to Boycie's Barrelback here in sunny Portugal, in my short of headroom basement. The top of my head is really taking a battering. It's the number of times I've banged my head and I've got lumps and bumps. But anyway, I'd like to give some good news today, but today is a problem day. In fact, the last couple of days, whilst I've been trying to fare this shear in, has caused me problems. I think I went through the last video how I was going to leave a 10mm gap there, protrusion, for the plywood to sit down on, and then cap this with mahogany, and that was okay, except when I started making these strips here to fare this down, the plans say that you've got like at least 4 pieces of wood here which has to come down, and that's kind of working about right. The problem was when I got down to here, that you can see that the curve of this was this inimitable 12-degree angle, and you can't put a capping on there, can you? Because that is clearly got to be planed off. In fact, I need another little strip in here, of which most of it will be planed off. But you can see the angle of cut there. I'm going to lose most of this piece, a lot of the next piece, to get that. And in fact, there's going to have to be another piece on the top there, as there will be along all of these. This will be a deck plank of mahogany, and that will fit nicely into there. And then that is going to make a smooth join with the plywood and the mahogany coming down here. So there's no room for a mahogany cap on there. There's no need for a mahogany cap. And if I was going to put one there, the problem was, how do I smooth that out or make a transition between that and a join between the side plywood and the deck mahogany plate coming in on the top there? And the answer is quite clearly it's not. So I thought, I'm doing this wrong. So what am I doing wrong? And so I started back with the plans again, and this was kind of what I found, and this is the bit that has kind of led me astray. Let me get my pencil. This says, and it's upside down unfortunately, it says that it's typical of frame 5. So frame 5, 7/6 is this one here, and you can see here, this is the decking plank. It's got 3 layers of plywood underneath to reinforce it, which is fair enough. That doesn't appear on any of the others. You just got 1 piece of wood on there, but okay, we can forgive that. That's either 1 piece of solid mahogany. But this is the bit that I was looking at. You see quite clearly here, there's a filler piece. You've got, well, they've got 4 pieces here, which is probably about right actually. I've got these 2 down here mounted, and I've got, it's probably not as deep as that, it's probably up here. But anyway, the 3 pieces of plywood are therefore sitting on this side mahogany capping, and there's your metal plate on the side. So that's where I got it from. The trouble is that when you look at this one, this here is frame 2. So we're down the back end here, this is frame 1. But this one is the clearest. This here is the side decking, the plywood, 3 layers, and this is the mahogany at the top, which is fared off. And you can see that there is a nice neat join between the 2. It doesn't sit on any of that. So that's the same there. There's a lot of fairing of a lot of these curves, which we know about, but there is a simple join between the side plywood planking on all of these and that deck plank there. Up here it's a little bit more complicated to, if you take this one as frame 7, you can see that there seems to be another piece of wood in here underneath, and the decking is cut to there, and it makes a join. So that really, I mean, that's got to be fitted before we put the side planking on. If I look at these bits here, it gets so complicated, the plans here, because they're all over on top of each other, and it becomes a little unclear. But it seems to me that this one here also has a piece of timber there, that's fed in, and the wood is coming up to the timber as per my previous. These 2 ones here, it's just not drawn. It's just too many. There's too many lines and stuff. You can see there that they've got the side planking there on, and there's nothing on 5 and 6. So that's then up to guess. On this one, which is frame 7, you've got that piece of extra wood in there for it to sit on, and there. So, so I've decided to change things to do exactly what I've just been speaking about. And so I've been removing these bits of wood here. This has got to be, this is the bend in the frame, that this has got to go up. But basically, I'm going to fair this off a little bit here, sink that in so it's then flush, so that the paneling can go and overlap this and probably beyond. I'll probably keep it, 20 mil or something beyond that, so that when I turn the boat over, I can put the deck planking in and cut that planking to that piece of wood. And that goes for here. This is going to be interesting here, but I can do that. That planking will come round here, and I'll just protrude it down. And when the boat is over, fair that off. This one I can do. This one is pretty much there already, as you can see. This one has to be sunk back in a little bit. This one has to be cut back in a little bit, but the frame is starting to get a bit more V-shaped, so I've got to be careful there. And then the top one here, I've got to think about this, because it's saying that you need to put this extra piece of wood in underneath here, which doesn't seem to go back much beyond frame 5 here, for which it then protrudes, and then the deck planking sits on that. This would be an awful lot easier if the boat were inverted. It is inverted. What's the opposite to invert? Verted. If it was the right way up. And again here. So I'm going to take this off at the minute, and I'm going to start cutting these pieces of wood. Trim that piece off there. As ever, there's always problems, and you have to go away, read the plans, look at other photos of how other people have done it. And so I started looking at the first of my side stringers, and so I've put the first one on just in a random position. There's about 4 of them to be cut in there, because if I can point the camera, I'm sure I can see. You can see I've started fairing this in just to give an idea, and this is the chine, and it curves in quite nicely around there, but it's largely straight. This here is obviously, it's pretty straight, isn't it? So that's going to go straight down to there, and it's going to dip like that. So that seems fair enough. But as you look down at the shear there, look at the curve on that, and look at this here. Sorry, I've just twiddled that, but it will show you, you've got lots of curve there, and this is going to be a straight line, isn't it? As it goes between there, there's nothing to hold it out. And that isn't going to work. That plywood is not going to bend onto there and go flat there. That has got to be a more gradual reduction of curve. In fact, I've got to induce a curve onto there. And I was looking online just to see, because people were adding pieces of wood in here, and that's what made me wonder what that was all about. Stuck this in, of course, that's all too clear. So I think that the answer is you've got to make another piece of wood in there, and it's got to assume a greater curve, and for this to lie along that piece of wood, I think would be the answer in there. One of them I've seen has put sticks in between here on the various stringers to induce the curve. But that's going to interfere with the space in there. I don't know when the plywood is in, if you take them off, whether they'll then tend to go straight again. I suspect they will. So I'm inclined to go for this piece of wood here underneath, say this stringer and the next one up. I think there's 4 here, to induce that curve, and then lay this stringer over the top of it, and then you can leave it in there, and it will leave this compartment free. What I'm thinking, or what I've heard, is that people manufacture or get made Boycie bags, and they fill this entire underdeck with a Boycie bag to keep the ship afloat, should it ever come to that. So that's a couple of the problems. I don't know quite what I'm going to do with this yet, but I'm going to take this off, fair these frames down to allow for the curve in, and see where that goes. And this, I think, I'm going to have to start making up another piece of wood. But once I've got this, actually this is a while away, because I've got to do the other side, I've got to do the other chine yet before I even get to this, so it's a little way away, but I'm thinking ahead of problems and solutions. So there we go. Okay, another day, another update on Boycie's Barrelback. Had another few days, actually a couple of good days working. The progress, as I said, we're fine-tuning. It's slow, but actually it all starts coming together, and it starts looking a bit more like a boat again. So I've been working on this side today. This side I got finished. I glued these two rails together. You remember that business of the bending around the frames but straight in between. You know, if I was going to do this again, I think I'd be inclined to use one solid piece of wood, which might be good for anybody who's coming to build one. You know, round here the bend is very gentle. It's not till you get to the front, but even then, look, it's not that bad. I haven't been needed to steam these at all. These are the only two, these two top ones are the ones I've been steaming. So you could do that in a oneer, and you could save all this hassle, because it really has been a lot of hassle. The difficulty is this bit, isn't it, getting that round the corner. But, you know, if you steam it and just take it in over a period of some days, just pull it in, you know, a few more centimetres each time you steam it, I think you'd probably get a better result. But I'm very pleased with what I've done here. This I've got to fair off because of the slope, the angle there of the frame, and that will come out to there, I reckon. So this will all come off. By the time I come back to here, as you can see, there's very little to come off, just a bit of cleaning up here. And at the back, there's those four pieces, which have got to be fed off an awful lot. There's a screw deep inside there to meet that angle there. And this bit here, that 12 degrees, I'm just going to have to put another piece of wood here and just fair that into there, just to bring that angle so that the wood will come round nice and curved on that piece there. So that's this side pretty much done, ready now for the stringers. I've faired these off so that they're all following the lines pretty much. I do wonder about this bit here. You can see from the depth of the cups there with that, when I put the saw in along the top of there, there's quite a lot to come off here. And that's fine. I can see the plywood's going to lie flat along there. But how it lies here with that angle there, it's kind of okay here. I can see that we can fair off a bit there and it's going to lie flat with the bow section. But when it gets to this front bit here, that's got to be a much steeper cut there on that bow bit to meet this, and a lot of this is going to be coming off. So I definitely think I need to put a little wedge in behind each of these just to get that contact area with the this bow section, so that when I shave this off, it doesn't weaken that joint. This would be okay, because now we're getting a little bit further forward and that section is making more sense. This bit up here is going to take a bit of trial and error, I think, but I'll get there in the end. But that's the picture. I mean, the nice smooth curves that I've got on there now, really pleased with that, and the way everything is going at the minute, it's looking a bit more like a boat shape. So I've just been fitting the other chine today. Again, you see, I've got all this aggravation, honestly, trying to keep these two pieces together and glue them in situ, and it's just aggravation. And then of course I've got to do this bit again afterwards, and then cut this bit off here. So anyway, it's all going according to plan. I am pleased with progress, and tomorrow I'll be able to start fairing this chine in and fixing it, and then I'll be able to get on with the shear. And then once I've done that, I can get on with the side stringers, which is going to be really interesting. And it really will be just time after all the fairing. It's going to be time to put the plywood in. Ooh. So, hi, it's been a couple of days since done a little update. I've been beavering away down here in my basement. What have I done? Well, I've finished the shear rail down on this side. I've just had it all glued. Well, I've glued up the filler parts here, because there's about 4 or 5 pieces of wood to come out to the edge here, so that I've got enough to fair off. There's an awful lot of that wood going to be lost. This is just coming out to the edge here now, and you can see there's a little bit of fairing just to be done there. And by the time I come out to this frame, not much at all. And if anything, that's pretty flat. And now we're going the other way. We're starting to fair out that way,
quite a bit of wood here and quite a bit of wood there. I've had to use some packing pieces here to get the dimensions right, because it was just slightly off on the center line there. And as you can see, I've also added some extra pieces of wood here, which I've just glued up. The reason being that you can see there from that angle that this outer piece, which is the 25mm piece of wood, I'm going to lose about half of that in the fairing process. And this is the kind of the bow. If this is going to get, if it's going to get a knock or something, this is the bit that's going to take the punch. I just thought, you know what, it wouldn't hurt, would it, just to put another couple of strips of wood just to reinforce that bow. I know there's going to be a piece of thick mahogany on the top of it, which will obviously strengthen it, but a bit of extra strength ain't a bad idea at all. So that's just done all of those, both sides now. I had to steam them to get those front ones in there, which I did this morning, and clamped them all up to hell. So still trying to figure out this this fairing process here, and it's pretty good up to here. It's pretty easy. I'm getting a lot of comments that there ought to be some more in here, particularly at this point, but I don't see that as being so much a problem, although I'm still not sure how much of this I'm going to fair away. It's this bit here is the problem, because this bow is going to come back to a point, so that's going to have to come right back here to fair into that bit there. So it's going to be, I'm pretty sure, just start fairing this bow section down, and then I'll have to alter these to bring those in a little bit more, and perhaps put a wedge in the back there, and particularly that one, because I'm going to lose quite a fair bit of that bit there. Certainly most of that face, because this is going to be quite a sharp point here, and then it's going to kind of blunten off towards there, and it bluntens off down there. But this is the kind of the fine part of the bow, so this is definitely the problem area. So I'm quite itching actually to get in there and to have a go at that. But I'm jumping the gun a little bit, so I'm just hanging off. We're at the point actually where I'm going to start the side stringers, which is really quite exciting. I'm really quite looking forward to this bit. So what I've started doing here, the plans say no more than 5 or 6 inches. So I've decided that I'm going to put 4 stringers in here. They're slightly smaller. They're these ones, 25mm wides and 20 deep. And I'm going to put 4 of them along there. So all I've done is to measure down there to down there, and that was 630mm. I know I've got 4 of those, and they're 25, so that's 100mm off. So I've got 530mm divided into 5, and I have to say it did take me 2 times to get the division right, and that was 106mm. So I've got 106, 106, 106, 106, and then what I'll have to do, I think, is measure each of these gaps and do exactly the same process again, so that I've got the gaps exactly right, and it's then running smoothly down the side. I've just transferred those measurements while I'm there to the opposite frame to make it easier, so I don't have to go back and struggle with the measurements again, and I'll do each pair of frames. And then I'm going to start getting my jig ready to cut these with the router. That will be the next interesting one. That was the one that I used, if you may remember, on the top here, so I used that, and I was able to run the router through either side, and I might just have to alter this or make up a new one to get in between the frames here. So I can't wait to think about that one, but I'm going to get these measured up first, and then I'm going to start putting these in. It's going to be really quite interesting here, particularly up the front here, because that one here is going to jump a straight line. He's going to have a straight line down there to there, and I'm going to need to put a piece of wood in here to bring that into a bend, and possibly another piece for the next one up. I think by the time we get up to the front there, as you can see, it flattens out. But I think the thing to do is just to put the lower one on first and see how it looks. It's going to be flat, so and then I can put the curve in, and then go up to the next one and then put that one in. And if I do that on each side, so I can make a piece of wood there, make up 2, so I can just replicate the same curve on both sides, and then gradually work up the boat. So it's quite a bit of work, but I'm quite looking forward to that. That's going to take me a little while, because then after that I'm into fairing. which is really progressing the boat along, and that's going to I think I'm just going to start down the back there and do the easy bits, flare off the flat bits at the back end there, and then work my way towards the hard bit at the bow, and hopefully we'll sort that out when the time comes. So that's where we are. Progress is good, very happy at the moment, and it's looking good. So, I hope this is recording. Yes, it is. I'm moving on to cutting the stringers, the ones on the side, the vertical side. I'm using slightly different piece of wood. That was what I used on the bottom, 25 by 15, I think. And this one, as you can see, is 20 wide, but it's just a little bit deeper as well. So hopefully there's plenty of strength in that. I'm just sort of looking at using my original cutting jig that I used to do the stringers on the bottom. I have guided I've got a slot, as you can see, cut in either end so that I can cut two frames at a time. And these guides were set a little bit wider for the wider piece of wood, so I've set them in a little bit so I've got the maximum width that I can use the edge of my cordless router. And I'll just start in this end. So I've got my piece of mahogany here, which is I've tried a couple of things to use pieces of wood down the edge here, which I can show you here. Something like this to stop the breakout, and it didn't work very well. It just created a lot of mess and a lot of cutting, and I found it was easier actually just to get rid of it and accept a little bit of breakout on the wood, and cleaned it up with a bit of sandpaper afterwards. So let's see how it goes. And that's it. It's pretty messy, isn't it, with wood chips going everywhere. But I've got quite a clean cut. What I've done is I've actually screwed this down because I'm coming in at an angle on this one, which I have done on the boat before as well, and just except there's a couple of small holes. But look at that, that's actually quite good. The proof of the pudding, of course, is, look at that, and that's pretty flush. And there's a little bit of play in there for some glue, and the reason I'm doing that, I find, rather than having to bang it in, is damaging the wood. And when you've got some epoxy in there, you want a little bit of room, because if you coat that with epoxy and you've got no room, well, obviously you're just going to squeeze it off. And I've got it to just marginally, it takes quite a bit of time to set that depth of that cutter to that. As you can see, done it 4 times here with varying degrees of success. Sometimes they don't fit, and sometimes, see there, it was too high, and I used that to gauge that, to set the cutter down a little bit more until I get it just right, which is about there. So I think that will do. Perfect. And so that's how I'm going to I'll start setting that up on my frames and start cutting and see how we go. Wish me luck. Right, another day, another success. Today, I'm very, very pleased with my progress. Here's my two, I've just been sanding these out. I'm sure I've got that too long, because they seem to go on forever. But anyway, they're plenty long enough. I had to scarf them so that I can get the bottom 2 on today. Look at that, look. I mean, that one there is just, I mean, that's as fine as a piece of hair there, and that one's not so bad either, but these are good solid joints and straight. Excellent stuff, excellent. Oh, and look at that, this is my kit this month that I bought. I needed a hole saw set, so got one of those. That's going to be excellent, excellent. But my big success is here. I've been playing around with this morning. So this is my cutter that I have been doing the cuts in the side of each of the frame to allow my stringers to come along there. I had to do something because look at the mess it's made of that. Not good, not good. But you have to get that distance exactly right so that it cuts this. And if you remember last night, I decided to do this, which was to mark each of these stringers here and to cut in to use the router so they wouldn't get the breakout on the wood either side. The trouble was I found this originally, what I've done is these two pieces of wood were actually, these were on the outside, and this was wide enough for my 25mm pieces of wood, and I've got 20. So that, what I found is that I was putting this on the stringer here, a couple of screws just to hold it in, but the blade wasn't coinciding with the cut, and that's no good, because if it cuts further down on the wood, then it's not where I want it to be, and it would cause breakout. So I decided to remake this whole jig. I knew that was exactly 11.5 centimeters, so I drew a center line here, and I got my 20mm either side of that, and in fact I used my new hole cutter there just to cut them out, so I could get that exactly where I wanted it over the cut, and by positioning those exactly right, then I would get the blade to cut exactly where I wanted to. And I've just done them, and look at that. Absolutely perfect, and on both sides, no breakout on either side. Dead chuffed with that. That's been well worth the time this morning to make that up and get it done accurately, because it's working, and that means that I can now just attach these each time. I get to cut 2 frames each one I do, and I'm not going to end up with that mess anymore. And that's this Douglas fir that's splitting very, very easily. So I've sold that one, so I'm going to crack on, and by the time I've got these, I'm going to do the lower 2, I think, all the way round to the front, and then I'm going to get the first of these 2 strips on, and then to see what sort of bend I get round there, and what I need to make in order to do that bend. If I make 2 of them, and then I'll do the lower 2 the other side, and then I'll do both sides, and then the next strip of wood up, I probably have to make another piece of wood. But we'll come back to that later on today or tomorrow when I've got a bit further on. Well, happy days. Got my first 2 stringers in, vertical stringers, bending beautifully round the corner. And look at this, now that we're doing the cut it, not a sign of any burnout there on the side of that wood. It's all going absolutely swimmingly. And it's taking up a nice curve, especially down the back there as it's twisting into the transom. That is so much better to finally figure out how to do that. But that's the way to do it, is definitely to cut in the depth of your wood, and then just use the router, and it takes no time at all, and it gets it precisely to the right depth, so that your wood then is just spot on flush all the way around. And where it's not, I think that one's just showing, no, that's because I've not pulled it in. There's a little bit of planing and sanding to be done. So to go up the front, you can see the steam as we're coming round the corner here. We're starting to bend in quite nicely, and that's quite a big bend round there. And I've got a feeling that that's going to snap if I try that. So I've just started my first steaming, which is from my little Karcher cleaner. I mean, it's so easy and it works so well, and it takes about 20-30 minutes to use that container. That clear container's full of water. You can hear it pumping in every now and then, and then it just stops steaming, and it's about that. You can start taking in the first bend on your piece of wood. So look at that, that's looking good, and beautifully curved, nicely spaced. Very, very, very happy with how that's gone, and that is so good. That jig that I've made up there, that is working perfectly. I'm very pleased with that. So good news from the basement, and I shall crack on. I shall do got another 2 pieces of wood to scarf tonight, so I might just get on and do that now, and while I start bending this piece in tonight, and then I'm going to figure out this curve. That's going to be tomorrow's fun and games, I think, if I can do that. And then I'll do the same on the other two to get the lower two going in, because that's probably, I think, the infills of wood will probably be on these two bits here to keep that bend coming in nicely. I suspect by the time I get there, I mean, that's fairly straight, and that will need a little bit of bend. It might need coaxing out, I don't know, but that's going to be a relatively slim bend, just to then start progressively bringing the bend out so that it matches this at the bow section, so you get a nice smooth transition from the curve, the heavy curve of the bow there, into the chine, and obviously down to here. So so there we go, we're making fantastic progress at last. I'm really chuffed, and I'll probably button this one up and get edition 18 out and crack on with some more bending and cutting.